Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Wekiva High School welcomes you to Baptiste Orthodontic Stadium for Varsity Girls Soccer Competition. Please welcome our guests from Apopka High School. They are the Blue Darters. And they'll be taking on your Wekiva High School Mustangs. Before we begin our game this evening, we ask that you please stand as we honor America with the playing of our national anthem. And now, let's meet the teams. We'll begin with our guests from Apopka, and we'll start with their reserves. Number 9, Damaris Vasquez. Number 1, Kyla Richmond. Number 2, Hannah DeClue. Number 28, Riley Redrati. Number 17, Anna Samuel. Number 12, Sierra Estacio. Number 16, Emma Lenardis. And number 21, Taylor Adams. The starters for the Blue Darters. Number 13, Lordine Andre. Number 5, Ripley Bowman. Number 23, McKenna Kramer. Number 15, Alessandra Becas. Number 11, Amaya Jimenez. Number 3, Skylar Comstock. Number 20, Mason Andretti. Number 7, Taylor Revert. Number 18, Peyton Perrone. Number 10, Courtney Jones. And number 8, Fiona Cornley. The head coach of the Blue Darters, Kim Perrine, and assistant coach, Donovan Thomas. And now let's meet the starting lineup for your Wekiva High School Mustangs. Starting with their reserves, number 17, Kika Medina. Number 99, Melanie Arias. Number 4, Aylin Martinez Rivas. Number 23, Narita Castillo. And number 38, Diana Bahena. The starters for the Mustangs. Starting goalkeeper is number 0, the junior Madison McCall. Starting on defense for Wekiva, freshman number 29, Sophia Guzman. Junior number 13, Kima Penthieve. Senior number 25, Andrea Santana. And senior number 20, Kayla O'Brien. And finally for the defenders, senior number 3, Cameron Lynch. Starting at midfield for the Mustangs, freshman number 19, Charlize Hopper. Sophomore and team captain number 24, Jessica Alejandre. Junior number 18, Julia Lara. And finally for the midfielders, senior number 10 and team co-captain, Aureli Patricio. Starting at forward for the Mustangs, sophomore number 7, Bianca Castillo. The head coach of the Mustangs, Mr. Ryan Nash, and assistant coaches Corey McGuire and William King, with team managers Victoria Ryan and Yanira Radina. Once again, for those of you here in person in the stadium, we want to remind you that tonight's game is being webcast live on YouTube as well as the NFHS network. If you have friends and family who are not able to join us in person and they would like to tune in, just send them to YouTube, search for Wekiva Sports, or you can send them to the NFHS network and search for either Wekiva or Apopka to pull up tonight's game. And for those of you who are listening to us on one of those services, welcome. My name is Mark Barchi, the voice of the Mustangs. I am joined tonight by Neil Fisher from the Apopka Chief, and we'll be taking you through tonight's game.
And thank you again, Mark. As always, an excellent job of introduction. The teams are now coming out to take to the field. Apopka is coming first, and now we see Wekiva. And, of course, this is an inter-city matchup, Apopka being over on the northwest side of Apopka, and Wekiva over here on the southeast side, right next to the 429. So, of course, Apopka, a team that was rolling, at least in terms of making the state playoffs. They made the state playoffs 7 straight years, and 9 out of the last 10 until last season. They had a good season, finishing over 500. I believe they won 17 games, but of course, the qualification for the state playoffs changed last year, where only the district champion got an automatic berth. It was no longer the first and second place teams, relying on the point system, and Apopka was beaten out by Lake Brantley in the district semifinal. They lost in double overtime. Well, actually one overtime. We played two overtime periods of 10 minutes, and they lost 3-2 as we get an early attack. And nothing's going to come to it, as good defense by Wekiva. The ball goes out of bounds.
Of course, tonight we have Apopka wearing the white jerseys with blue numbers, Wekiva in the navy jerseys with white numbers.
So, of course, Wekiva, we talked about this last week against International Community School, which was our first broadcast, as the ball's headed out by one of the Apopka defenders and saved right in front, and now cleared out by Apopka, and they're going to counterattack. Wekiva comes in with a 2-3-1 record, but that record is somewhat deceiving in the aspect that Coach Nash did create a much more difficult schedule this year. Last year, of course, they went 12-11-1. Advanced all the way to the district championship final for the first time in 9 years, as well as having that record over 500 for the first time in 9 years, as we're going to get a free kick about 30 yards outside of the goal box. And that is Alessandra Bekus taking it. Bekus, excuse me. And now the attack by Apopka, and it's going to go out. So we'll see if this is a change of possession here. Yes, it is. Still early, only 2 minutes into this game. And again, Coach Nash put together a much more difficult schedule this year than any one he's had during his previous 6 seasons at the helm of Wekiva, in order to force Wekiva to take that next step.
Yeah, Neil, as you started to allude to earlier, that's been something that has been enabled by the change to the FHSAA postseason bracketing system that occurred a couple of years ago, where previously every school was required to play each of the teams in their district either once or twice, depending on what the coaches decided in the preseason meeting. And now that is no longer the case. Now it is a free-for-all. The districts still exist, but they are completely irrelevant until the postseason. And at that point, you simply take the Max Preps rankings of every team in the district, which is driven by strength of schedule. Of course, it's a proprietary formula, and so no one exactly knows how it's calculated, but the conventional wisdom is that it's similar to an RPI kind of index where you look at the team's own win-loss record counting the most of all, the team's opponent's win-loss records counting a little bit less, and then the opponent's records counting even a little bit less than that, and that all turns into this rankings formula, and that is now what seeds the district tournament, not the district record during the regular season, which is why all of those requirements are lifted, and that now gives coaches quite a bit more flexibility as Apopka takes a shot there from, probably about 20 yards away. That goes wide left. That gives coaches a lot more flexibility than they have previously had to design the schedule that they want. So if you are in a rebuilding year and you need to schedule some opponents that are going to allow you to kind of put the training wheels on, then you can do that. And if you are an up-and-coming program, as Coach Nash believes that Wekiva is, and I think there's some strong evidence of that, then you can start to amp up the difficulty level a little bit. And if you're a perennial state powerhouse and you want to go after other state perennial powerhouses to make sure that you're in top form for the playoffs because you expect to be a name in the playoffs, then you can write your schedule that way. And it really enables you to design a schedule that will be most beneficial for your program and put you in the best possible situation by the time those postseason tournaments begin.
And thank you for the explanation, Mark. And so, again, we're early, only approaching about 5 minutes in. No score between these inner-city rivals. And Apopka comes in with a 4-2-1 record. Wekiva, as we mentioned, 2-3-1. And Wekiva, of course, they did start off the season with a different formation, but now they're going primarily with a 5-4-1. For those of you new to soccer, the first number is your defensive players, so 5 defensive players, 4 center midfielders, and 1 forward. And we're going to get a counterattack from Apopka, which is not going to really materialize as the ball goes out of bounds.
And as you heard me read the starters a moment ago, that alludes to that 5-4-1 strategy. You heard me introduce just one forward. That was Bianca Castillo. With everyone else being mid or defense. And you'll find that actually a fairly similar strategy on the boys soccer team as well. The net result of that is you will see relatively fewer fireworks. Nice save there for the Mustangs by McCall as Apopka takes their 4th shot on goal of the evening. And so you'll see that it results in maybe fewer fireworks because it is a more defensive, more small c conservative posture compared to some other more aggressive play styles. It is a prevention-oriented strategy, and it has been working pretty well for Wekiva so far this season. Here comes another shot and another save, but a follow-up, and that one cannot be saved as we have the first goal of the night scored. That is Skylar Comstock. Opens up scoring.
And so Apopka takes a 1-0 lead in the 6th minute. 33-24, actually the 7th minute, 33-24 remaining in the first half. This is Neil Fisher, Mark Barchi. And we are live at Baptiste Orthodontic Stadium, Wekiva's home field. Wekiva did manage to come down, at least put some pressure on the Apopka defense in the first minute. Since then, Apopka has pretty much controlled the possession, and that is their strength. They are a possession-oriented team. They do a lot of between the hash marks type possession. And they will occasionally go outside to inside, calling their spots as the ball now gets inside 20 yards.
And of course, Neil, you and I probably call more basketball games per year than we do soccer games, but in basketball we'd call that a putback on that previous goal by Comstock.
Yeah, the Apopka offense got the defense going to the right side, facing the net, and the ball came back on the left side. Excuse me, the right side facing the net. The rebound, of course, McCall made a very nice save, fundamentally sound, but she was unable to corral the ball, and there was a rebound which went back to the right side facing the net, or if you prefer, the weak side.
Yeah, and just did not have a lot of help there from her teammates on defense, and we got a pretty good looking shot there from Ripley Bowman, hits the crossbar.
And just wanted to also point out, Madison McCall is in goal tonight. She missed several games. Of course, the last game we broadcast was last week against International Soccer Community. She was out as we get the corner kick. Nice job of clogging up that middle for Wekiva and leaving really no options for Apopka. We'll get a goal kick here. So while we await that goal kick, as I mentioned, Apopka comes in with a 4-2-1 record. And they will take, their last game was actually supposed to be against Windermere. That was last Wednesday. It was postponed. And they will finish the calendar year against Seminole on Thursday. That's the 17th. That's an away game for them. And Apopka is also a member of District 7A3, so that's Class 7A in District 3.
7A is, of course, the largest of the classifications in all sports other than football. Well, I should say the major team sports other than football. Individual sports, of course, have usually fewer classifications. And, oh boy, nice work there by McCall as she falls on it after having to make a save. Darters have been very active in these opening 10 minutes. 7 shots to the Mustangs, 1 so far. We've seen time of possession favor Apopka pretty significantly. Of course, the FHSAA reviews classifications every 4 years. Of course, they'll make minor tweaks in between those cycles as new schools are built and districts need to be realigned, etc. But broadly speaking, it's a 4-year cycle, and in the last cycle, Wekiva was downgraded from the largest classification in most major sports to the second largest. So Wekiva now is a 6A school in basketball, soccer, baseball, softball, etc., while Apopka remains 7A. And actually, in this most recent realignment, the total number of classifications was reduced. So Wekiva and Apopka were both previously 8A. Apopka went to 7A, which is now still the largest, and Wekiva dropped to 6A.
Yeah, Wekiva and Apopka have been district rivals throughout most of the history as we get a shot and a goal from 20 yards out. Perfectly placed. McCall got her hands on it but was unable to deflect the ball down and flipped over her hands.
McKenna Kramer adds a second goal to the Darters score. That gives them a 2-0 lead with just under 29 minutes remaining in the first half.
And so Kramer giving Wekiva that 2-0 lead. We are only 12 minutes in, or in the 12th minute, just under 29 remaining in the first half. And this matchup between intercity rivals, Apopka, of course, coming in from the northwest side. Obviously, the much older school, much more of a tradition. And mentioned at the beginning of the game, they're looking to regain some of that tradition, some of that legacy. This was a team under Coach Doug Matthews that won 6 consecutive district championships. and they qualified for the playoffs in 8 out of 9 years. Last year, of course, they failed to make the playoffs. So we're going to get a goal kick here, and as Mark mentioned, they have dominated the early going here. Possession-oriented team, certainly that has been their strength and why they've been able to get that 2-0 lead, keeping the pressure on Wekiva, and really operating in the middle between what would be the two hash marks if we were, if this was a football game.
Well, this is a football game. This is an association football game.
American football.
And we're going to get what looks like an offsides call. We'll turn the ball over to the Mustangs. It'll be taken from near the corner by Patricio. She is a captain, one of two captains on the team this year, her and Jessica Alejandre. Areli Patricio, of course, is committed to play soccer at the next level. And she also participated in the Southeast All-American game and scored a goal for her team during the off-season, so that was great to see. Coach Nash actually coached against her in an odd turn of events, and so that was a great experience for both of them during the off-season.
Yeah, I did a story about that this summer, and it was a good experience not only for Areli as a player, but for Coach Nash to work on his coaching skills. And one of the things that was great for him, and he alluded to, was the fact that he was not the head coach, so he didn't have to deal with all the organizational duties, responsibilities, and he just got to focus on the X's and O's and matchups.
Yeah, and of course, Patricio is a 3-time All-Metro team selection here in Orange County, and she is committed to Tennessee, Columbia State Women's Soccer up in Tennessee. That's where she'll be playing next year.
And so we are going to get a free kick, another free kick. I believe this is the third of the game. We are only 14 minutes in. And again, that possession oriented concept that Apopka using is certainly leading to opportunities and staying deep in Wekiva territory. Chest down, and possession stays with Apopka.
Yeah, very straightforward free kick there by Jones. Nothing particularly cute or deceptive about that. Went straight at the goal, but the Mustang defense was there and able to keep it away. And now we've got a tie-up about 20 yards out from the Wekiva goal. Another free kick coming up here for Apopka. This one is to be taken by number 15. That's Alessandra Becas, and it is high and over the net, so she goes straight on the goal. Mustangs will take over at their own baseline. We have now hit the 15-minute mark of the first half here on Tuesday evening soccer action. This is a single-header game, so varsity only. We all get kind of an early night tonight. It's one thing you can say about soccer games is that the timing tends to be more reliable compared to other sports like American football and basketball, where it's all at the whims of how much fouling goes on and whether or not there's going to be an overtime and how many clock stoppages there are, and all that gets stripped away in association football. And you can pretty reliably count on, when we say it's an 80-minute ball game and you add 10 minutes for halftime and 2 water breaks, that gets you up to about 92 minutes. So you can count on these taking just over an hour and a half.
And of course, another major difference in the format of soccer compared to most American sports is the clock does not stop. If you're new to soccer, if there is a stoppage for, say, injury, that is added at the end of each half.
And Cornelli has a high shot that goes over the crossbar there. No good. And yeah, Neil, and that's actually a difference between high school and professional level soccer. In professional soccer, the clock starts at 0 and counts upward. And then any extended disruptions of play, such as injuries, etc., those will be kept by the official on the field, and they will be added to the time limit at the end of each half. At the high school level, it's a little different. The clock does stop for goals, yellow cards, also known as cautions, red cards, also known as send-offs, and injuries or other extended disruptions of play. The referee will actually signal for the clock to stop, and it counts downward from 40 towards 0 instead of counting upward. So when the clock strikes 0, it really does mean 0. That being said, we will remind everyone that the clock you see on your screen is the courtesy clock that is being kept in the press box. The official time is kept on the field, so sometimes the amount of time is slightly off from what you'll see on the clock on the bottom of your screen, but it does tend to be pretty darn close.
And now Apopka regains possession. They will bring it up to midfield. Down the left sideline, a little too long, and that ball is cleared out by Wekiva. And this is Apopka now trying to gain control, which they have. Again, Apopka has been very strong with the possession game tonight, and they have used that to their advantage, taking a 2-0 lead as Jimenez brings the ball up, and now it's going to go out. McCall's going to settle it down and decide to keep the play going instead of letting it go out of bounds. Although she is going to take what is, for all intent and purposes, a goal kick. So, and also, talking about the format, one of the major differences, again, we alluded to the fact that the clock generally does not stop. One of the differences, though, between high school and the next level, college and even professional, is that the clock does stop in high school when a goal is scored. That is not the case in the college or the professional levels. And we should have a water break here soon. It usually comes around the 20-minute mark.
Patricio on the throw in here. Quickly swatted back out of play by the Darters. Another throw in coming up for the Mustangs here as we get ready to round the midpoint of the first half.
And now Wekiva trying to gain some possession, trying to get some time of possession, and they are not. Good defense there in the middle of the field by Apopka.
Yeah, Alejandre got tangled up there with Courtney Jones, and minor foul is called there. It's going to give the ball to Apopka. Free kick coming up here. And it will get booted all the way to the goal. Apopka very expertly avoiding an offsides call there, but it goes into the waiting arms of McCall.
And Wekiva will attempt to mount some pressure on the Apopka defense.
Yeah, Alejandre gets outmanned by the Darters.
And the counterattack,
Shot!
A quick one.
And it's goal! Darters goal scored by Courtney Jones to make it a 3-0 game, just under 20 minutes, and that is almost exactly the midpoint of the first half. And so we will pause for an official timeout.
19:56 remaining in the first half. Apopka now ahead 3-0. And, well, they have certainly used that possession-oriented offense to their advantage. Two of the goals, the first and third goal, have actually been scored based on locations, just really nice shots. But the reason they were able to get those shot off was because of the possession. Just a lot of open territory with both of the shooters being able to get that clear shot, and both of them were put in that upper top corner of the goal. The first one going on the right side, this last one in the third, and then of course the middle goal was scored off a rebound. The initial shot was taken, and Madison McCall came up with a very nice save, but unfortunately the goal went from her left to her right, and it rebounded over to the left side, and there was a wide open territory and an easy shot to easy opportunity to put the ball in. So that's where we stand, 3-0 with 19:56 remaining in the first half. Neil Fisher, Mark Barchi, with the action from Baptiste Orthodontic Stadium, Wekiva's home stadium. Wekiva comes in with a 2-4-1 record. And we mentioned earlier that is of course, you don't want to be under 500, but that is a somewhat deceiving record when you look at the actual competition, a much more difficult schedule this year put together by Coach Nash. Their 2 victories coming against Ocoee and Pine Ridge, and their 1 tie was against International Community School, which they played last week. That was a 4-4 tie. Looking at Apopka, they come in with a 4-2-1 record as we get ready to resume play. Apopka, Wekiva will gain control of the ball first. A long kick with Apopka immediately regaining possession, and they're going to counterattack a lot. We've seen this throughout the first half.
Yeah, Kramer took over that one very quickly at midfield. And you can, of course, we mentioned that Apopka has dominated time of possession. And if you look at the shot count, 12-1 right now in favor of the Darters. The Mustangs have really not had, since probably the first 2 minutes of the game, have not had a direct threat on the Darters' goal.
So Apopka's, as we get another shot, and McCall with some nice footwork to slide to her right.
Yep, Courtney Jones kicked a worm burner there.
Yeah, that was a much more difficult shot to save than it appears. You got the ball's rolling on the ground, and it's not rolling. You got those little short hops like a shortstop or second baseman gets in baseball. And then on top of that, the ball's spinning in a couple different directions. So nice
Jones
job.
gets tangled up with Guzman there, and Guzman's going to get the better of it. Patricio gets a free kick, and here it comes. And it goes directly to the Darters on the other side. Comstock thwarting the Mustangs' plan at perhaps a quick, maybe a fast break style strike, and it comes back to Wekiva's side of the field.
And dumped in down the left corner.
And that's a nice work there by, that was number 3, Skylar Comstock. And this seems like something very obvious, but is easier said than done when you're talking about soccer strategy. You want to pass the ball to where your teammate is going, not to where they are. And we talk about the same thing in American football when you're talking about quarterbacks, and we talk about the same thing in basketball when you're passing down the court. You don't aim at where your intended receiver is, you aim at where they're going to be. The difference in soccer, though, is that you're typically covering a lot more ground than you are in basketball, which makes those distances harder to judge, and you're also covering it on the ground. The ball is covering that distance on the ground, not in the air, so you have friction to deal with as well that's altering the speed of the ball. So with all that taken together, it again sounds very obvious, but is not necessarily easy to execute.
Yeah, and another shot taken by Apopka, although that one was not on goal. It was wide. I believe that's the 7th shot tonight taken by Apopka.
Well, that's the 15th overall
15th
shot. That's the 7th since about 10 minutes ago.
Okay. So a lot of shots taken by Apopka, obviously. And another point, Mark, that you also talk about, you want to make lead passes, pass to where the player is going to be, not where he or she is. You also have to consider angles. They come much more into, have much more of an impact in the game of soccer than the other sports you mentioned, because you want to be able to get your opponent to move to the wrong side of the net. Not just the goalkeeper, but the defensive unit.
Yeah, and that's another strategy that you'll find is common to any kind of sport that involves those team passing plays, whether it's American football, soccer, or basketball, that you want that misdirection. You want the defenders to believe that you're going to do one thing and then you actually do another, and you end up in an undefended position, and that's how goals are scored in a lot of cases. Here a free kick comes to Patricio. She's got a couple players downfield, but it doesn't go to any of them. Instead, it lands in the waiting arms, or waiting feet, rather, of the Darters, and it's going to come right back to Wekiva's side of the field.
Yeah, another quick counterattack for Apopka. Broken up this time, and let's see if Wekiva can mount an attack.
And Patricio and Alejandra teaming up at midfield. A little fancy footwork there coming up from, that's number 10, Courtney Jones. And the Darters are back in control. Jones has been very effective and very nimble on her feet at midfield.
Yeah, she's been essential to Apopka keeping control of the possession of the ball.
Now she takes a shot, and it is deflected away by number 29, Sophia Guzman, so that one didn't have to be saved at the goal.
Yeah, and so Apopka has not only controlled the possession of the ball, but they've controlled where that possession is, working between the two hash marks. And Wekiva's had a very hard time being able to really get the ball to the outside in what's really their strength, where they can use their speed and get some angled passing going. So again, another long kick, which does go on to the Apopka side, but Apopka able to come up with possession and control. They were not able to do anything with it this time. Wekiva takes over. And they're going to try again with that over-the-top passing, and just too much over-the-top there. So, of course, Apopka is also playing without one of its best players. That's Anna Samuel, who unfortunately was suspended. She is serving a 6-game suspension, as we are now down to 14 minutes, and the score is 3-0 Apopka. Again, I by no means am in a position to judge in terms of actually distributing disciplinary action, but I have Coach Perrine has been very vehemently in believing that the discipline does not actually is equal to the offense, as this ball is going to go out of bounds and we'll get another goal kick. Basically, there was physical contact with Samuel and another player, and the other player went down, and the presiding authorities who determined the discipline decided that it was worthy of a 6-game suspension. Coach Perrine disagrees because it was not intentional, and there was no injury among the other factors involved. So, of course, Samuel is a forward, and she came in today expected to be one of their top scorers, or this season coming in expecting to be one of their top goal scorers. Of course, with the 3-0 lead, that has not hampered Apopka tonight, at least not through the first 28 minutes. And a corner kick now setting up for Apopka. They are ahead 3-0. And to the middle of the crease. And nothing doing, but Apopka will able to keep control. Wekiva unable to clear. They'll reset the offense down on the right side. And they're going to try to shoot it. Crossing pass. A little too much strength, but Apopka able to come down with control there in the corner. Another shot, blocked. And players go down, no whistle.
That was Jones that went down there. They're going to call that clean. It's a no call. And swatted out of bounds for the Darters by Bowman.
So Wekiva relying on a 5-4-1 formation, as we are now down to 11.5 minutes remaining before halftime.
And now we have a player slow to get up on the Wekiva side. We have a signal to stop the clock.
Apopka relying on 4-4-2. That is the standard traditional formation throughout the history of soccer. About until about 20 years ago, about 95% of the teams use that 4-4-2 as the player is now up. I can't. Is that?
Yeah, I believe under all that hair, that's I think that's Cam Lynch.
Yeah, certainly would make sense. He's a defenseman. So for those of you new to soccer, those formations, getting back to the formations, the first number is the defense, the second number is your midfielder, and the last number is your forwards. As Wekiva unable to get within 20 yards of the goal crease again. And Apopka counterattacks through the middle of the field. Some nice passing, 5-7 yards. And, a long pass which gets through the defense, and Apopka will be able to set up. But Bowman unable to make that turn and shoot the ball back into the center in front of the goal. Wekiva will take the goal kick. As we are now under 11 minutes, Apopka with a 3-0 lead. This is the Wekiva Mustangs Athletic Network. Neil Fisher, Mark Barchi bringing you the action from Baptiste Orthodontic Stadium. Of course, this is a rivalry between the two high schools in Apopka. Wekiva on the southeast side of town, Apopka on the northwest side. And Apopka continues to keep the threat in the pressure on. The call comes out, and she's able to bust up that play. But the ball will remain in possession of Apopka. They will have a throw-in about 15 yards from the end line. And a nice easy throw-in. Apopka again trying to just control the middle of the field, and they have been very successful throughout this game. Some very nice passes between 5 and 7 yards. A shot which is deflected. And McCall scoops it up, and she will take a couple of seconds here to give her team a chance to reset. Now with the drop kick, chested at midfield, and Apopka once again, as we go under 10 minutes, will set up their offense. And some action back and forth there, about 20 yards inside of midfield, resulting in Wekiva gaining possession. That's Alejandro, the sophomore, unable to connect.
Yeah, trying to get it to the other side of the field, but didn't have any help down there waiting. And the darter's a little off target there. Guzman is able to clear it out of the way. Coming in from the side, a pass in, a little too high. Darter's not able to get there, and that was intended for number 3. That was Comstock, but it was out of reach for her. It's going to roll out of bounds off of the Mustangs. It'll be a corner kick for the Darters.
Yeah, the second one in about 2 minutes.
And a nice gentle lob. Guzman clears it out right away.
And now Wekiva will try to get that ball out and mount some offense. We are just under 8 minutes. The score is 3-0 favor of Apopka. Make that 4-0 from the right side. Well, a quick shot, a quick pass.
And a Darter goal scored by number 3. That's Skylar Comstock, her second tonight. Apopka takes a 4-0 lead with 7 minutes, 50 seconds remaining in the first half.
So that's the third goal which has been scored from that 10 to 20 yard range.
And Neil, was that directly off of a free kick?
That I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it was touched by, there was a couple of players who the ball went within a couple inches. I think that's something that we will have to talk to the coaches about. But certainly whether it was actually touched or not, it did not really change direction. And it was just a laser shot from Comstock, burying the ball in the back of the net, just really what set that up was just how quick she got that shot off.
And Mustangs are called off sides here. It'll go back to Apopka.
So another free kick. Apopka will look to set up in the middle of the field, which they do. Temporarily, Wekiva able to stop this attack. Haven't seen a lot of long runs or pressure-filled runs here from Apopka. Again, their scoring, have been able to get the ball down inside a 10 to 20-yard range where they take that quick laser shot and put it perfectly along the side of the goal. Only one of the goals, all three of the four goals have been scored on single shots.
Another offsides call here against the Mustangs.
And the other goal was scored on a rebound right on the doorstep of the goal.
We've seen this now come up 2 or 3 times in the back half of the first half here, where every time Wekiva gets it down toward the Apopka side of the field, they end up getting called off sides. Part of that is because of the 5-4-1 formation that they use, making it harder to avoid those calls, and part of it is just because Apopka has shown a great level of situational awareness in where they position their forwards.
And again, we've been talking throughout this first half. I talked to Coach Perrine last week, and she talked about really the strength of her team in terms of design and X's and O's, being a possession-oriented team between about 30 yards in front of each of the goals. And you have to be very strong in situational awareness to be able to play be a possession-oriented team.
Well, speaking of that, 18-1 right now is the shot count. And so that is certainly working out the way that they had in mind tonight. Alejandre tries to clear it out there. It gets whistled in favor of the Darters.
And so with the clock dipping under 5 minutes, Apopka had 4-0. We will get a goal.
This is going to be a free kick. Yeah,
yes,
coming to
kick.
Courtney Jones, going to take it here.
Yes, who scored 2 of the goals tonight. But Apopka has not really possessed the ball inside the goal crease. Again, they have scored from 10 to 20 yards. So their strength is not really inside, as here comes the free kick. And somebody deflected that.
Yeah, I think that was number 10, Aureli Patricio, actually, who got in between that and the goal.
Yeah, and that ball certainly looked like it was about to go into the back of the net and make the score 5-0. McCall did line up properly. She kept her line, but just we've seen this all night. And again, 3 of the 4 goals have been scored on taking shots between 10 and 20 yards and just perfectly placed, not just along the side of the goal, but just a perfect drop, that perfect angle once it reaches its peak.
McCall lobs it to the sideline, but doesn't have a player there. I think she was probably aiming at Rivas. So it goes right back to the Darters, and Wekiva just has really struggled tonight to place the ball where they intended, which again sounds elementary, but is a lot harder than it looks. And yeah, Wekiva's just struggled to keep the ball in bounds. There's a shot on the ground.
Well,
I think that was Jones again.
Off the crossbar. So the last 45 seconds or so, Apopka, some luck has played in Wekiva's favor to keep the score at 4-0. And as we talked about a little while ago, Mark, you know, you want to make the passes in front of where the players are. You want to pass to where the players are supposed to be. And Wekiva just has not been able to do that as we get a whistle.
Yeah, Jones gets tripped by Patricio. And we got a conference going among the officials.
2.5 minutes remaining in the first half.
And so Aureli Patricio is cautioned. Of course, whenever you have a tripping situation like that, the official has their criteria that they use to determine whether it is simply a minor foul or whether it does actually merit a caution or a yellow card. And in that case, it does. And so Patricio comes off, and that will also award a direct free kick to Jones.
Yeah, and she's setting up her offense now, waiting for the referee's whistle.
Courtney Jones on the free kick.
.233 remaining. Here's the kick. Deflected. And battle in front of the net on the right side. Jones gets the ball. Again, rebound, takes it low, takes the shot.
And that's going to go into the right side of the net. So Jones takes 2 shots in a row, one on the free kick, the other the old-fashioned way. Neither of them are going to convert. So on the one hand, Apopka, if we're using like basketball analogies, is shooting a little less than 25%, but they're taking so many shots that it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, again, Mark, Apopka has not really taken a lot of shots or even possessed the ball inside the 20-yard mark. They've done their damage between about midfield and the 20 yards in front of the net. They've just gotten some very quick shots off. And there you see that again, and whoa.
Nice save there by McCall.
Yeah, McCall, and that's where keeping your line's important. You could see that there. She was able to catch that ball as it was coming down.
Yeah, McKenna Kramer had a decent-looking shot there. That was well placed.
So, again, McCall was actually able to come up with the save on that because McKenna was not able to get the shot off quite as quickly as we saw on 3 of the 4 goals. And that allowed her to be able to judge that drop once the ball reached the peak. So it was the same kind of drop, which 3 of the 4 goals were scored on. But this time there was a couple more seconds for McCall to set up and react. We are now under 1 minute in the first half. 4-0 Apopka in the lead. They've led from almost start to finish. They have not trailed. And again, Wekiva only able to get 1 shot off tonight. Time of possession, not only has it been in Apopka's favor predominantly, but that possession has been on Wekiva's side of the field. Wekiva did put some pressure on in the first minute and a half or so, but it's been all Apopka since then as we reach the end of the first half under 30 seconds. 4-0. Apopka's lead. And one last opportunity here, one last attack for Wekiva as 15 seconds now remain. McCall kicks the ball out. And once again, Wekiva is not going to be able to really get much of an assault.
Yeah, Medina doesn't get there quite in time, and Apopka quickly takes over, and we're going to get another tripping call.
Yeah, right as the clock reached triple zeros.
Yeah, that was Jones that went down that time, and we are going to get a yellow card. Kayla O'Brien is cautioned for tripping. That'll be a direct free kick to Courtney Jones.
And if that name sounds familiar, it should. She took the last 2 free kicks. Same exact situation. And there's another one. And, well, certainly gave that ball a ride, but just slightly over to the left. And that's how the first half will end. Apopka with a 4-0 lead.
That takes us to halftime. 4-0 the score at intermission here on Tuesday night soccer action. And we'll go into the break with the Darters up by 4. Dr. Andre Baptiste is excited to announce that coming last month to Apopka, Baptiste Dentistry for Kids. Of course, Baptiste Orthodontics has 3 locations around the Central Florida area, and now their newest in the heart of downtown Apopka features both orthodontistry and dentistry services. Healthy teeth and beautiful smiles go hand in hand, and now you will be able to go to one place for all of your child's dentistry and orthodontic needs. Baptiste Dentistry for Kids provides services for children as young as 1 year old all the way up to their late teens. The new modern office is in the heart of Apopka across from Kitland Nelson Park. You can give them a call at 407-801-7775 for more information on Baptiste Dentistry for Kids. Also visit BaptisteOrthodontics.com for more information. And while we're paused here at halftime, we'll get some music going for those who are joining us here in the stadium. Ladies and gentlemen, we remind you that if you are not already doing so, make sure you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We are at Wekiva Sports on all 3 of those services. You get real-time information about our athletic events, particularly our home ones, and you can also get information and updates about our athletes and alumni. We had some college commitments come in recently. We also had last night, Shadaria Smith picked up 1,000 career points at the basketball game against Colonial. That was a huge achievement for her. We also had Harleonte Reed announce his commitment to the to the Sharks. And that is posted on our Twitter feed as well. So make sure you're following us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. It's at Wekiva Sports on all 3 of those services. If you are subscribed to our YouTube feed and press the little bell icon, then you can also be treated to notifications anytime we go live. So even if you forgot to mark your calendar, you'll be notified, and you can tune in from wherever you are on your favorite computer, smart TV, or mobile device. Again, make sure you subscribe to the Wekiva Sports channel on YouTube. We also encourage you to bookmark WekivaMustangs.com for all of your scores, schedules, and more. You can also sign up on WekivaMustangs.com for alerts anytime the schedule may change for any reason. If a game is canceled, postponed, moved locations, or anything else happens, we'll be glad to send you an email, a text message, or both. Just go to WekivaMustangs.com and click the register button in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. We promise we will only send you those announcements for what you ask for, and you can change your mind at any time. Again, it's all on WekivaMustangs.com. We are pleased this year to bring you more live streaming than ever before. We've been live streaming for about 3 years now, and this year we know it has become more important than ever, especially as some of our fans are not able to join us in person this year, and that's why we encourage you to subscribe to us on YouTube as well as the NFHS Network. The NFHS Network has generously installed Pixelot cameras at our stadium and in our arena, and that allows us to broadcast every single home game, whether we have a crew available or not. So even if multiple games are happening at the same time, for example, basketball and soccer, or when we get into spring season, perhaps volleyball and lacrosse, or volleyball and flag football, we'll be able to broadcast all of those games even if we don't have 2 crews available, because we can engage our robo cameras to help us out. The only difference, though, is that the Pixelot cameras only broadcast to the NFHS network, so there definitely is still value in purchasing that subscription, because that gives you all access to all of our games, and we encourage you to do that if you are able. And if you choose the annual plan, then a portion of your subscription fee benefits the school of your choice. So we're going to take a break here for about the next 4 or 5 minutes, and we will come back to Baptiste Orthodontics Stadium shortly. Welcome back to Baptiste Orthodontic Stadium. Mark Barchi, the voice of the Mustangs and Sports Information Director here at Wekiva High School. And I'm joined by Neil Fisher from the Apopka Chief, ready to take you through the second half of tonight's contest.
And we begin the second half, Apopka, with Apopka holding a 4-0 lead. And Apopka has, for the most part, dominated the game tonight, pretty much in every phase. Let's see if Coach Nash could come up with some strategy or some type of design here that will allow Wekiva to get back into this game.
Yeah, I actually just got a notification for those of you who are watching on the NFHS network, or maybe you subscribe there, that Wekiva versus Windermere just tipped off. So you won't hurt our feelings if you want to split screen this and put up 2 games at once. The marvels of modern technology. You think just a handful of years ago that this sort of thing just wasn't possible at the amateur level.
As Alejandra getting the second shot tonight for Wekiva, and really the first opportunity for Apopka to have to come up with a big defensive play.
And indeed they do. That probably would have been in were it not for the efforts of the Apopka GK. Wekiva's going to get a corner kick here.
The first of the game for Wekiva. Into the middle.
Looking for Alejandra, but darters get in the way of it there. That's Kramer breaking up that play. It's going to go back to the corner, and so Patricio gets 2 in a row here. Here comes the second. Looking for a header. And it's in!
So that cuts the lead to 4-1.
Bianca Castillo taps it in as Areli Patricio takes the corner kick. And that cuts the darter lead to 4-1 with 38:22 to go in the second half.
And so I did mention before that flurry, or I was going to, that the shot, I believe the shot total is now was 20-1 at halftime in favor of Apopka, just to give you an idea of how dominating that is. Now, that doesn't mean Apopka has shot the ball 20 times straight on goal, but they have taken a shot in that direction. And, of course, as this seems to always be the case in sports, as soon as the broadcasters announce a trend going one way, it completely changes. Wekiva getting 3 shots in that sequence during the first 2 minutes of this second half. And so what was a 4-0 score now becomes 4-1. Apopka, though, will set up here for the corner kick. That's Tyler Rebert, excuse me. And just quickly, Wekiva regains possession of the ball with this goal kick. And the kick will cross midfield where it's settled down by Apopka on their side. And Apopka's built that 4-0 halftime lead, of course, now 4-1. With what you're seeing here, just solid possession and possession in the middle of the field. And they've done most of their damage with that possession game. And then the damage has been caused because they've been able to keep possession with between about midfield and 20 yards in front of the net. And so Wekiva certainly looking like the break at half helped them. Obviously said, let's see if Coach Nash can come up with some strategy, some X and O designs. But I think it also helped them out just to be able to get some rest. As we mentioned, Apopka has dominated every aspect of this game during that first half. And one of those aspects was possession, not just where it was, but the time. They had the ball, I'd say, for about 75% of that first half. And Wekiva certainly could use a rest, catch their breath. And so Apopka going back on the attack after the goal by Wekiva. Wekiva scored about a minute ago. They have yet to regain possession of the ball. Apopka's controlled it since that goal. And we've seen a couple of instances, what we just saw there, where Wekiva defense was able to stop the attack but not able to control the ball and get it back up the field. 4-1 is the score. We are in the second half. Neil Fisher, Mark Barchi. This is the Wekiva Mustangs Athletic Network, bringing you action on Tuesday night from Baptiste Orthodontic Stadium, Wekiva's home stadium. And Wekiva will begin to play with a goal kick. Not quite able to get out to midfield, but Apopka nonetheless doing what they've been doing for the majority of the game. Just solid possession, built on 5 to 7 yard passes in the middle of the field. And this is Jones, and she's got a run going and got a shot off, deflected by Wekiva, but the rebound and yet another shot. Wekiva catching something of a break there in the fact that that shot was wide. So probably wouldn't have had to go in, but Wekiva did not have to directly defend that shot. As the clock dips under 35 minutes. And we'll see a third consecutive goal kick from the Wekiva goal. Down the right field, down the right sideline, and once again, Apopka gets the ball first, although Wekiva recovers this time, but not enough. Apopka brings it up, crosses midfield, and they're going to attack from the left sideline. A little too long of a pass, but Wekiva just clears the ball out, and they will reset their defense here as the ball's thrown in by Apopka. Apopka wearing the white jerseys, moving left to right. Wekiva in the blue jerseys, moving right to left. And Jones again gets the ball back. She has controlled that middle and some just really solid passing on both sides throughout this game. And Wekiva with an opportunity, but nobody down.
And for what it's worth, those of you interested in following multiple Wekiva sports, I've got my eye on the basketball game that's happening over on the other side of town at Windermere. It looks like the Wolverines are celebrating senior night tonight because that's what's currently broadcasting. So it appears that, and I know that a lot of schools have been doing that, and actually Coach Nash has brought that up with me. So you'll see right now, if you look on the schedule, that senior night is scheduled for the girls soccer team on the very last home game of the season. But that may change because we've seen just so many things happen with different schools altering their schedules. And so right now it's set for for coming up the very last game of the year, which is going to be Foundation on January 19th. There is some talk of moving that to January 13th, which would be the second last game of the year against Evans. We'll let you know if that does in fact happen. We'll make sure that it gets posted on Twitter and Facebook, and that our YouTube and WekivaMustangs.com events get updated. Just again, out of an abundance of caution, because what you don't want to happen is, somebody has a concern, or policies change, or pandemic guidelines change, or you have a positive test on either team, and all of a sudden the game gets canceled at the last minute, and it was your last opportunity of the year, and then senior night gets canceled and you can't make it up, and that's what you don't want to see. So I know a lot of teams have been making those choices to hold senior night relatively earlier in the season, and Wekiva may opt to do that as well. So we'll let you know, but that is something that's being talked about right now.
And Jones with the shot, and McCall with the save, diving to her left. So that was the more difficult save, but McCall coming up with 2 saves in that sequence to keep the score at 4-1. Wekiva was down 4-0 at halftime. They scored in the first 2 minutes of the second half, and that's where we stand now at 4-1. And unfortunately for Wekiva, while we're going to get a run here for Apopka, Wekiva has played better in the second half. Apopka just possessed the ball throughout that first half, 75-80%. I'd say it wasn't quite as high, maybe about 2/3, 1/3. But, of course, for Wekiva to really mount any type of threat.
Jones there uses her body to bump into Castillo, and she'll get called for that with a minor foul. And so Patricio is going to get a free kick here.
So for Wekiva to really mount any type of threat here in terms of challenging for the win, being down 4-0 at halftime, they're going to have to really just improving from where Apopka had possessed the ball about 3/4 of the time to 2/3 isn't going to be enough. And Apopka, in the meantime, though, they continue to do what they did in the first half. And this is what they were doing in the first half. They've been attacking through that middle, getting runs to about 20 yards out, and then popping the ball in. And we're going to get one a lot closer here at 10 yards, deflected in front of the net.
Yeah, that was Cronelli on the shot. And you saw her pump the brakes there. Again, that situational awareness that Apopka has demonstrated so well tonight that Wekiva's kind of struggled with, avoiding the offsides call, waiting for her teammates to get down there, and then nearly picking up the goal. But again, as you mentioned, Neil, deflected away.
And Wekiva will take another goal kick as the ball goes out of bounds.
Yeah, it looks like...
Actually, I guess Wekiva touched it last. I thought we were going to get a goal kick. Thought Apopka touched it last, but we're going to get a corner kick from Apopka. 29 minutes remaining. 4-1 is the score. Ball crossed into the middle, headed, and McCall unable to come down with it the first time, but she jumps on it the second time. And now she will come about 20 yards in front of the net, throw the ball out to Alejandre, number 24 at midcourt. And Alejandre is probably, along with Aureli Patricio, the two faces of Wekiva. And Apopka has done a very good job of really limiting their touches, as well as just controlling the middle of the field.
Patricio turns on the afterburners, but finally gets tangled up and outmanned, and gets almost triple teamed there by Jones and Becas, who join Comstock.
And this is a familiar sight. Jones, number 10, with the ball, dancing around in the middle of the field. And she, again, situational awareness, gets rid of it. And that sets up a shot, which was ultimately deflected.
Yeah, O'Brien is probably going to have a bruise on her shoulder tomorrow on account of that. And I'm seeing that...
Whoa, oh. And McCall, for as great as couple of saves she came up there, makes a mental mistake. That will make the score 5-1. And that's 27-37 remaining in the ball game.
The Darters add to their lead, now 5-1 with 27 minutes, 37 seconds remaining in the second half.
And you have to feel bad for McCall there. That certainly was a very fieldable, a ball which should have been fielded. And, you know, quite frankly, that might have had something to do with the fact that she was out for several games and there might be some rust in. She just simply looked like she was trying to run with that ball before she actually caught it, and it just rolled over and through her hands. And so again, that makes the score 5-1 in favor of Apopka. With 27 minutes remaining, this is the Wekiva Mustangs Athletic Network. Long shot from Jones. That's going to go wide right. So Apopka looking to up its record to 5-2-1. Wekiva came in with a 2-4-1 record. Of course, mentioned several times tonight that Wekiva has a much more difficult schedule this year. Coach Nash wants to try to force his team to up their game, and of course, playing teams that you're supposed to beat, that you have the higher skill and talent level, then does not do that. And another attack through the middle with Jones carrying the ball, shot, blocked, and McCall this time grabbing the bouncing ball. She's going to try to get her offense attacking. And no go. Again, good defense for Apopka. Getting in front of the Wekiva player. And Wekiva will take over possession. There's the whistle. Throw in from Penteeve. And Wekiva will try to get the ball past midfield. Some good give and go, but Apopka clogs that passing lane up. Once the ball gets past midfield, Jones again through the middle. Down the left sideline, I'm Neil Fisher and Mark Barchi bringing you action from Baptiste Orthodontic Stadium. The shot, and another shot wide of the net as we drop under 25 minutes. And Apopka holding a 5-1 lead. They have not trailed at all tonight. Here's the corner kick. Chested down in front. And a whistle. And it's going to be Wekiva possession.
All right, so we had to do a little research. Amaya Jimenez was the last touch on that previous goal.
And in the meantime, Wekiva at least getting some pressure, getting the ball physically down to the Apopka side of the field. And thank you for joining us tonight on Tuesday night. The two Apopka City schools, high schools, going at it. Of course, Apopka from the northwest side, again coming in with a 4-2-1 record. Wekiva on the southeast side, a 2-4-1. There's the corner kick. And great job by the Apopka goalkeeper to get out in front of that ball and bring it down. And Apopka with another counterattack as we go under 23:30 remaining. Down the right sideline, that's Jones. And she stops, trying to set up, trying to get back into the middle. And she's going to be successful going along the end line. Pass in front of the net, 10 yards, shoot, score! 6-1 Apopka.
Goal scored by Ripley Bowman. The previous goal was by Amaya Jimenez, and that gives Apopka a 6-1 lead with 23 minutes, 17 seconds remaining in the game.
And so that goal, once again, set up by Jones, and her ball-carrying skills took it down into the right corner and then got around the end line, got around the defender on the end line and just shot it right in front to Bowman, who was standing wide open on the left side facing the net. Neil Fisher, Mark Barchi bringing you the action tonight. Jones passing down the right sideline, or the right hash mark, to Tyler Riebert. And Jones gets the ball back. Avoids some contact. Doing some dancing now on the right side. Gives it back to the middle. And some action from the net. Wekiva clears the ball. Unfortunately, no one on the other side. And another long shot. This one off target. So Wekiva will try to mount an assault with 22:15 remaining. 6-1 is the score. Apopka is not trailed. Wekiva got into Apopka territory, was able to get a fairly strong shot on goal during the first minute and a half, but since then it has been all Apopka. Wekiva did cut the lead to 4-1 in the first minute and a half of the second half. And Apopka, though, has pretty much controlled possession since then. And as you just saw in that last goal, it's been pretty much controlling through that middle between the hash marks. And at halftime, just want to switch sports here for a minute as we set up the corner kick. At halftime, Mark, of course, mentioned that last night, Shadaria Smith, member of the girls' basketball team, scored her 1,000th career point as the cross and the header. Wekiva dodges a proverbial bullet there, the header off target. So Smith reaches the 1,000 point mark last night in an exciting victory over Ocoee. And of course, she also scored what were the winning points. 9/10 of a second left. She went to the free throw line and converted 2 free throws, which took...
Now, Wekiva was down by 1, and that
Yeah.
put them up by 1, and there was less than a second remaining. And with both teams having burned up all their timeouts, there was no way that Colonial could move the ball into the front court, and so they were not able to get a shot off. And so that's how the game ended. So Smith had really probably the biggest night of her career, hitting that 1,000-point milestone and getting the game-winning free throws and being the team's leading scorer with 17 points. So, yeah, great night for her and a really signature win. I mean, Colonial was the number one. In fact, I think they still are the number 1 team in 7A. Wekiva remains the number 2 team in 6A behind only Winter Haven. And that was also a game that really, I think, put Wekiva on the map. I think they moved up about 50-something places in national rankings based on the result of that win because Colonial is such a strong opponent. That takes us to the midpoint of the second half, and so we'll pause here for an official timeout with 19 minutes 56 seconds remaining, and the Blue Darters leading 6-1. Baptiste Orthodontics is proud to be the sponsor of Baptiste Orthodontics Stadium, home of the Wekiva Mustangs. This year more than ever, we all must stay connected with our community and remain strong as we overcome all the challenges that come our way. Dr. Baptiste wishes all the players, coaches, and fans from all the teams that play at this awesome stadium to stay safe, stay healthy, and enjoy every opportunity that comes their way. For more information on Baptiste Orthodontics and all of its services, please go to their website, baptisteorthodontics.com.
So continuing, talking about the women's basketball team, if you just tuned in, it is 6-1. Apopka leading Wekiva in the Apopka intercity rivalry. Talked about Shadaria Smith scoring her 1,000th point last night, and of course scoring the 2 free throws with 9/10 of a second, which took Wekiva from a 1-point deficit to a 1-point victory. This Wekiva team, and of course, for those of you who have not followed women's basketball, Wekiva has been a state powerhouse under Coach Butts. He took over the program 9 seasons ago. They lost, I believe it was 19 of their first 20 games under Coach Butts. They then won 6 of their last 7 games in his first season. They took Olympia to double overtime in the district championship tournament semifinals. And Olympia was the number 1 seed. They were ranked in the top 12 in the state. And since then, Wekiva has been a state powerhouse. They've built a program, Coach Butts, along with Coach Russ and Coach Griffin, have built a program that pretty much has reached the level. Anything less than a trip to the state Final Four is considered a disappointing season. And they also have 2 state championships. But for all that success, Coach Butts says he thinks that this team is the most balanced team he has ever had in terms of contributions from each position. And, of course, that victory last night took the record to 7-1, and that's another very strong indicator for optimism and hope. Wekiva's always been a team, yes, they win 22, 23 games. I just mentioned their pedigree. As the play begins and the throw-in for Wekiva to Alejandre, but most of those years, Wekiva's been a team that has only been around 500 through the first half of the season. Coach Butts and the rest of his staff has a remarkable ability to get them to really take a couple of steps up during the second half and play their best ball, sometimes even playing better than they should be once the postseason begins. But this year, they're already at 7-1 heading into that mid-season point.
Yeah, and Neil, we talked about that a little bit in the first half, that Coach Nash, now that he has a team that has some momentum going behind it and is not necessarily in that rebuilding mode that it has been for the past few seasons, that Coach Nash is kind of taking that similar approach, maybe not quite on the extreme level that Coach Butts is able to with the girls' basketball program, but building a significantly stronger schedule that may result in a less impressive win-loss record as we get a shot and goal here. Number 10, Courtney Jones picks up another goal for the Blue Darters. That extends their lead to 7-1 with 18 minutes, 55 seconds remaining in the game.
And so Jones, I'm sure she's going to be happy, not just to score, but she has certainly been, I guess, the catalyst for all those other goals, so she certainly gets rewarded there on that particular goal.
And she had the assist on the most recent goal prior to that.
And she has just been a beast in the middle of the field with controlling that ball through some very solid passing to both sides of the field. And now the score is 7-1. And I also want to talk about the boys' basketball, since we just spent several minutes talking about the girls. The boys, of course, are nowhere near as much of a state powerhouse as the girls are, but nonetheless, they have had their moments. Of course, in 2017, they advanced all the way to the state final, lost to Osceola. And they did have a run of, I believe it was 6 consecutive seasons in which they did qualify for the postseason. Last year was a very difficult season for them. They had nobody returning with any varsity experience, any significant varsity experience, as a corner kick is now being set up by Wekiva. And
Patricio puts it in and manages to get it in, and it's unclear exactly who touched that, but I think it might have been number 3. That's Cam Lynch touches the corner kick from Areli Patricio. And that will cut the Darter lead to 7-2 with 17 minutes, 40 seconds remaining.
And that set piece was all hands on board. Lynch, of course, is a defensive player, so she was pinching up really as much as she could up the field.
And yeah, and I would not bet my life on that. I'll have to go back and look at the replay later, but I think it touched Cam. Those are 2 beautiful corner kicks from Areli Patricio that have set up the Mustangs 2 goals. It actually looked a lot like the goal that she scored during the Southeast All-American game, which we all thought was an assist into a header. And then when you went back and looked at the replay very closely, it turned out it was actually what is known in the business as a miracle kick, that it actually went in directly from the corner without touching anybody. I'm not going to say that's not what happened there, but at least from the first look, from where we are probably 70 or 80 yards away, it looked like Cam Lynch touched that one to put it in.
In the meantime, Apopka counterattacks, and they keep the pressure on. That shot will go high and wide. 16:41 remaining. And again, just want to get back to the boys' basketball team real quickly. Mentioned that last year was a very difficult year. They won only 3 games, which I believe is the second lowest victory total in the history of the program. And that was because when the season started, they did not have one player with any significant experience at the varsity level. This year they are off to a 5-3 start as a shot and a goal touches the crossbar, comes down behind McCall, 8-2. So 16:07 left. And the lead now extended to 8-2. As the play continues. Alejandre trying to get control, and she does. A little give and go with her and Lynch. And pass too strong. Apopka picks it up, and they will set up for the counterattack, trying to get that ball back into the middle, which they do. Tap back. Some good passing here in the middle, triangle passing. And ball taken down that left hash mark. Back out to the left side, where Wekiva intercepts, but unable to control. And so now approaching 15 minutes to score 8-2. Apopka will set up again, a shot and save by McCall. Going to her knees to come up with that save. And McCall decides to kick the ball. And unfortunately, it probably was not the right decision. It doesn't go very far, and Apopka gains control once again in the middle. Apopka maintaining control on that left sideline. And Patricio steals the ball. And can she get something going here for Wekiva, some kind of run? As we dip under 14.5 minutes, she's going to go to the long over-the-top pass. Too much over the top. And Apopka will bring the ball back into Wekiva territory. Wekiva trying to set up the give and go, but no go. And down the right sideline. Ball's loose in front of the net, picked up there by O'Brien.
And I went back just the last few minutes here and looked at the replay, and I believe that was Courtney Jones that had that previous goal. So that would be, she has at least 2, if not 3, and an assist tonight. So she's had a terrific night for the Blue Darters. And, yeah, that was one of those situations where I was still tweeting the information from the last goal when the Darters scored the next goal. So I was looking down for that one.
2 scores in about 45 seconds. So Neil Fisher, Mark Barchi bringing you the action from Baptiste Orthodontic Stadium.
Also, meanwhile, speaking of boys basketball, they are now underway. You can see them playing in the upper right corner of your screen there at Windermere. About a minute in to the first quarter. Nobody has scored as of yet. That game, if you want to watch it in full screen, is on the NFHS network being broadcast by Windermere tonight. And, of course, once this game is over, then certainly we're not going to continue to carry it on our channel. We'll let Windermere handle that. But in case you want to drop in on them.
So the 2 intra-city Apopka teams going at it. And barring what would be an incredible miracle, Apopka is going to take a very convincing victory. They are up 8-2. They have not trailed tonight. One of those games where Wekiva came in with a 2-4-1 record, but they certainly, you could make a case that they are playing better than they did last year. Talked about this, that the schedule was much more difficult. Coach Nash looking to up the level of competition in order for the team to take that next step. They had a couple of mile markers, couple of watershed moments last year, as we will get a ball goes out of bounds. And I believe we're going to get a goal kick. So, despite the 2-4-1 record, that might not be as obvious. Actually, we're going to get a corner kick And then, of course, Apopka comes in 4-2-1. They've had some issues to deal with, obviously some of them because of the pandemic and the restrictions placed as the corner kick launches. And too much heat.
Yeah, Alejandro is able to clear that for the Mustangs, go straight to Patricio, and now here's where that 5-4-1 formation becomes problematic because Wekiva doesn't have anybody down there to take advantage.
So Apopka again coming in 4-2-1. Coach Perrine talked about her. Yes, she has had some deal with some unexpected issues because of the pandemic, but she's had a couple of issues to deal with that have nothing to do with the pandemic. Nonetheless, the team has played good enough defense and good enough possession control, possession offense, that they've been able to put up that 4-2-1 record. And in the end, though, it looks like Apopka is going to still be quite a bit ahead of Wekiva in the development and just the skill level. Wekiva really not able to mount any offense with any consistency. They have the 2 goals. They scored both those goals within a couple minutes.
And both of them off of corner kicks as well.
Yeah, but for the most part, about 75% of the possession has been with Apopka, and they have possessed the ball on Wekiva's side of the field. We are now approaching 10 minutes left. 8-2 is the score. Wekiva will throw the ball in, and again, just relating back to the possession being so heavily in Apopka's favor, this is only about the 7th time tonight that Wekiva's had this ball this deep into Apopka territory. And we will get a free kick, and that will go behind the net. Baptiste Orthodontic Stadium, home of Wekiva Mustangs, is the site. Right next to the 429 in southeast Apopka. Neil Fisher, Mark Barchi, bringing you the action. We're down to 9 minutes, and Apopka holding an 8-2 lead. They have yet to trail in this game. It's been a very systematic effort for the Blue Darters, for Apopka, who's in the white. They have relied on their greatest strength, and that is possession ball, possession-oriented design. And they have pretty much had their way tonight in terms of getting shots off.
Meanwhile, we'll check in again on the basketball game. It looks like the Wolverines lead the Mustangs 10-5 with 3 minutes 56 seconds remaining in the first quarter.
And we actually get a stoppage here.
It's going to be a free kick coming up for the Darters.
Kick shot, and McCall getting her hands on that again. A very difficult shot to judge there. That ball was kind of spinning slightly to the right, and then it had a backspin as well on the actual rotation of the ball. 7:45 remaining. Apopka sets up for the corner kick. That's Andretti, Mason Andretti. Shot off that corner kick and wide again.
Yeah, that shot there was taken by Astasio. And so, yeah, that one's wide. And now the shot totals up to 41-5, at least by my count.
So, and again, remember that 41 does not necessarily mean that McCall, the Wekiva goalie, has had to come up with 41 saves. They haven't all been on it, but it does give you an indication of the domination that Apopka has had in terms of the ball being on Wekiva's side of the field. So as we now dip under 7 minutes, Wekiva looking to maybe get a goal or two here to at least build some momentum heading into their next game, which will be on Friday, and that's against Bartow. It's an away game.
And that game actually is going to be canceled.
Okay. So this indeed will be the last game of the 2020 calendar year for Wekiva. And I'm sure that Coach Nash is looking ahead to, as McCall comes up with another save.
Yeah, that was a long lob from McKenna Kramer.
So Nash would certainly like to see at least one goal here, or at least a flurry of offensive pressure to take into the break and build on that during the break and during his practices. But so far, Apopka has just dominated that middle of the field with the possession.
Checking in briefly again on that basketball game that we've got going on the other side of town. 13-9 is the score. Wekiva just cut that lead from 13-7. So now it's a 4-point ball game with 1:59 seconds remaining in the first quarter, and we'll pause for a timeout on that game. The men's basketball team, as you mentioned, Neil, while they have definitely had moments of brilliance, they have not had that consistent domination that the girls' basketball team has enjoyed for the last several years. A lot of that has had to do with personnel changes. In particular, last year, the Mustangs were absolutely decimated by graduation and transfers. They've rebuilt this year, and they're off to a decent start. What remains to be seen is how they can fare against top-shelf opponents. Wekiva has demonstrated over the last several games that they can handle low to mid-tier opponents pretty well. But when they've played against Super 16 teams, that's where they have struggled. As we get a shot there, right off the crossbar there, and that makes it. What are we up to now? 43 shots, I think, for Apopka.
And I think McCall actually got a hand on that, just enough of the fingertip that pushed that ball up to the crossbar. As we now have 4.5 minutes remaining. So again, Apopka will up its record to 5-2-1. They will also break a 2-game losing streak.
And here's where that 5-4-1 formation becomes a challenge for Wekiva again, because Bianca Castillo got up there, didn't
now
have
they're
any
going
help,
to get
though.
Offsides.
Yep.
Certainly looked like they were going to at least get the opportunity, as I mentioned, at least get one last offensive flurry and pressure. But the ref quickly called his, blew the whistle, and that was an easy call to make. Again, it wasn't Castillo's fault. The ball transitioned so quickly.
We'll get a call here, a whistle, as the Mustangs and Darters get tangled up there about 30 yards away from the goal. Got 41.4 seconds left in the first quarter on the basketball game. Windermere leading 15-9.
And the shot off the free kick.
That is over the crossbar.
So McCall will set up the goal kick. Actually, she will let her defenseman. I believe that's Pinthy.
No, that's Patricio that took that.
It is
for her.
Patricio. Okay, she's back on defense.
Yeah, Patricio, as far as I can tell, is everywhere. Wherever you look, there she is.
Yes, and she's one of those players. You have one, seems like in every sport, on every team, who does everything. But we talked about Patricio as we get under 3 minutes here. Certainly the face of the program has another shot. Wekiva dodges the proverbial bullet on that one, going wide right. But Patricio played in the Southeast All-American High School Soccer Shootout this past summer. It was held up in the Atlanta area in June. And it's a very select tournament. Only four teams play, 15 players on each team, so only 60 players were chosen among 8 or 9 southeastern states. So to be selected is quite an honor, but to score, as Patricio did, among that very select, that just adds a little special to the normal special. And, of course, Coach Nash was also chosen to coach. He said it was a great experience for him. And for him, of course, at the high school level, the head coach has to deal with all the organizational duties and responsibilities. Since he was not the head coach of the team that he was coaching, he did not have to deal with those organizational responsibilities and got a chance to focus just strictly on X's and O's.
So we've now officially hit the end of the first quarter in the men's basketball game happening down at Windermere. And it is a 15-9 lead for the Wolverines. Of course, that is one of the Mustangs' losses so far, was when they drew them as their first-round opponent in the Metro Hoop Fest event that kicked off the season. They lost 59-35 in their first meeting, and they're trailing 17-9 right now.
Yeah, and that meeting was actually the very first game of the season for both teams.
Yeah, that would normally have been the Metro versus Florida challenge at Apopka High School, but that event was replaced this year by the Metro Hoops Fest on account of the differences in the format, limiting it to a smaller field of Metro-only schools, limiting the common personnel and the overall scale of the event just because of the pandemic, and just made it impractical to hold an event of the size that the Metro versus Florida Challenge normally is. So we missed that this year, and we, of course, were disappointed we didn't get to do that, but it was, of course, the right decision. And so we're looking forward to that coming back in 2021.
Yeah, and just quick note here as we're about to wrap up this game. Wekiva came back and won the next two games against Lake Nona and then Winter Park. And Coach Lubin was very proud and impressed and thought it meant a lot that the team came back after really not performing very well against Windermere. And he said he thought that showed a lot about how much they had matured from last season. And on that note,
that takes us to the end of the ball game. Final score, Blue Darters 8, Mustangs 2. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you so much for coming out tonight or for joining us online on YouTube or the NFHS network to support your Mustang and Blue Darter athletes. For those of you who are on the NFHS network or who have a subscription, you can tune in now to the men's basketball game, which is just entering the second quarter, with Windermere leading the Mustangs 19-9. That, again, is on the NFHS network right now, coming live to you from across town. Once again, thanks for joining us tonight. For those of you here in the stadium, please drive carefully and arrive home safely. Those of you who tuned in online, please make sure you subscribe to our YouTube and NFHS network channels before you go home, before you leave us tonight. And have a great night.